We have just learned of more Epstein tapes. Author Michael Wolff sat down, apparently, we're now learning, with Epstein for 100 hours of conversations centering around Epstein's long relationship with Donald Trump. As I told you in the other segment, I understand, given who Epstein was and the disgusting criminal human being that he was, it's important to be very mindful of what we then insinuate, what we indicate with our language. And that's why I add the caveat as we enter into this next round of reporting and audio of Epstein talking about his relationship with Donald Trump, that I'm only asserting what is being laid out here, right? And I will show you Trump in Greensboro, North Carolina, as this news is breaking, what he was up to in just a second here. So we already talked about this Daily Beast reporting. Listen to Jeffrey Epstein spill intel on Donald Trump's White House. Michael Wolff, the explosive chronicler of Donald Trump's 4 years in the White House, has released what he says is a recording of Jeffrey Epstein. And it talks about the inner workings of the Trump White House, giving us a sense of how Epstein was still sort of connected and tuned in to what was going on there while Trump was even president. These recordings allegedly recorded in 2017. And so obviously Trump was president by that point in time. And Epstein then 2 years later killed himself in prison after being arrested. The Daily Beast now reports this tonight. Listen to the Jeffrey Epstein tapes. I was Donald Trump's closest friend, says Epstein. And yes, Epstein, given the character we understand about him, the vile character, a sex trafficker of underage girls, is not someone we take the word of at face value. Totally understand MAGA. And also, given that these tapes were just sort of recorded in these conversations with Michael Wolff, and now he's releasing them to give us more insights about this relationship, we understand, if you're being honest, that this is newsworthy. And that if this were a Democrat, especially the broader context of Donald Trump, that it would be discussed. Jeffrey Epstein described himself as Donald Trump's closest friend and claimed intimate knowledge of his proclivity for sex, including cuckolding his best friends, according to recordings obtained exclusively by the Daily Beast. And let me jump over here. You can show this as well, Jay, and these are just my notes. I pasted some different excerpts we'll get to. But one thing I want to remind you all of is that Trump said in 2002, quote, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side." So just adding that as a confirmation that Trump agreed they were close friends for some time until he later denied that. The convicted pedophile even boasted of his closeness to Trump and his now wife Melania by claiming, quote, "The first time he slept with her was on my plane." And let's jump forward to the second audio recording in this article. This is allegedly Epstein's voice that matches other recordings of Epstein.
Just tell me about his intelligence.
And by the way, as you're listening to this, there are long pauses. If it goes quiet, podcast listeners, the podcast is still rolling. It's just this recording has long pauses in it. Please remember to, if you're watching on YouTube, to click the subscribe button. If you haven't yet, we're hoping to do something wonderful, which would be to get to 1 million subscribers. Think about that. Thank you all so much for getting us already to where we are and very soon to that milestone. And so if you're not, please check that you are.
With respect to real estate deals, really, he's a salesman. He knows real estate really well. Anything else but that, he knows nothing. No history, no strategy. And when I start to say about executive function, the executive function says, and it's strange because construction by definition is just that. First you have the foundation, You have steels going up, what stage? But in terms of his anything but real estate, he can't figure out if I fire Bannon, what happens tomorrow.
So cause and effect, that has no relationship. In analytic intelligence.
No.
Now, what's this thing about that functionally he can't read, or he doesn't read, or
He doesn't really. He certainly can't read a balance sheet, which is funny. Has no idea. He doesn't read. He reads page 6. So he's not functionally illiterate. But his reading comprehension is anything complicated. He doesn't know.
now what's other than he has he has a sense of humor. He can be funny.
He's great, but funny.
What else recommends him?
His ability to sell. He is charming. He is able to convince people. It's very much like Clinton. Both Bill and Donald have the ability to go over to a fat, ugly woman, say, you are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So he tells everybody what they want to hear. Not that it's charming. And I'm telling you that I know 4 or 5 people who have recently seen him. I just realized we're talking, where he built the UN Plaza Trump Tower, just in that amazing. I was going to take the top 4. I went with Donald to see.
So again, some of this is difficult to hear, but we'll be discussing all the key elements as we go along.
And it was, again, what if you can pay me if that was it's a $13 million transaction. You can pay me 11, you're recording the 13 that you give to tomorrow. It's always. So the idea that he is that bad, dirty business, he's a construction person in New York City, with the electricians union in the country. I have no idea what they're thinking. But he's not, he's a horrible human being. In Jeffrey's book, he does nasty things to his best friends' wives. Anyone who he first tries to gain your trust and then uses it to do bad things. That's how it goes.
Right. So that some judgments. One person you don't want to be saying, I guess, or you do, I don't know. Or for Epstein to say, oh, Trump has no morals. That's a crazy thing for sure. To go further into this reporting, it says the tapes tell Epstein's version of the relationship of 2 former friends and their very different paths. One towards infamy, prison, and suicide. The other toward power, the Oval Office, and his own criminal conviction for paying hush money to a porn star. Trump's camp referred to the tapes release as false smears and election interference, as you can imagine. Then, as was a really notable part of this, Wolf asks during these tapes, how do you know all this? And Epstein replies, I was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. Now, to jump to some of the excerpts I pulled out, he also claimed that while Trump has friends, he was at heart a friendless man incapable of kindness, and he alleged that Trump had had scalp reduction surgery for baldness and called himself the Trumpster. That's what led to Wolf asking, how do you know all this? And the big bombshell claim that we sort of already knew from recordings of them hanging out with one another and what Trump had said about him, that they were very close friends. Epstein saying the closest friend of Trump was Epstein for 10 years. Here's the part that I just referenced.
So how do you know this?
Donald's closest friend, 10 years.
So I need the dump. Just give me Donald.
First, it's fun. So you probably know he had a scalp reduction because he had the same male pattern movement that we all have. He had his scalp movement system.
So there, for our podcast listeners, him talking about Trump's work to undo his baldness, or balding in general. And I guess Epstein's just citing that as proof of what he knows about him. I don't know.
Donald's office, as you know, he made that. He used to be on the phone with that fake PR person. I also found it funny. I was sitting there listening to the guys from the Post talk, and Donald would say, he's a great guy. I loved working with him. And I sit there going, this is just amazing. And he'd say, Michael, come on, let's go to the office.
Okay, so this part is one of the notable parts, which is Epstein, in a very confusing and slightly incoherent way, explaining what would be an activity of Donald Trump, which would be that he was really into, allegedly, according to a terrible human being that could very well be being dishonest, Jeffrey Epstein. Trump was really into trying to sleep with his best friend's wives. And the way that he would do it is to bring in a friend of his, get the friend's wife on the phone, unbeknownst to the friend, so that the wife could hear the conversation, but the friend didn't know the wife could hear the conversation. And then convince the friend to agree to sleeping with a different woman to make the wife mad so that Trump could sleep with the wife.
And he said, tell me, what's it like in there? He said,
So now Epstein's reenacting what would happen, what the strategy was that Trump would use with his friends to facilitate this thing he had. And he's doing it with Michael Wolff saying, so if Michael, you were the friend of Trump's, he would say Michael, and then that's why you're hearing Michael's name over and over.
You like having sex with your wife? How often do they? He'd say, it's great. Seriously, Michael, how often do we have sex? Don't you want to try? You and I can go upstairs, or tomorrow come over. There's this girl's coming in from Los Angeles, part of the Hawaiian Tropic country. So come over at 3 o'clock. You're going to have a great time. I promise you, Michael, it's just me and you. You're going to have a great time. Be up here at 3 o'clock. We can go upstairs. The whole time, Victoria's been on the phone, listening. He's setting it up. Because he wants a story. So he has, because as the boy conversation.
And there's a bunch of interference, but I summarize the story. You get what he's explaining there. And to go further into this, on the tape, Epstein can be heard saying he's a horrible human being. He does nasty things to his best friends' wives, anyone who he first tries to gain their trust, and uses it to do bad things to them. I will say, when this is happening, the supposed falling out between the two had already happened, but we're also getting these anecdotes from inside the White House that Epstein was aware of. So were they still communicating in some fashion, or did Epstein know people around him? That's sort of up in the air. But I do want to continue, as much as I dislike Trump, and as much as there is this long history of the relationship, and it's hard to imagine Trump had no understanding of what was going on when Epstein was described by Trump as really loving women young. But it is important that we, as I said earlier, engage with all these stories sensitively. And so it's very possible that Epstein, given that they had some falling out in their friendship, was trying to sabotage Trump. The strange thing to that point, though, is that Epstein didn't come out publicly with this. This was on a recording and a conversation with Michael Wolff, who just sat down and talked with him, I guess on background, for his Fire and Fury book. And so that does bolster a little bit that some of this could be true, but we'll continue forward. On one occasion, Epstein alleged Trump took a woman to what he called the Egyptian room in Atlantic City casino, Epstein alleged he came out afterward and said, "It was great. It was great. The only thing I really like to do is F the wives of my best friends. That's just the best." And if MAGA's thinking Trump he would never do such a thing, then explain to me all of the different cheating scandals, one of them being related to the falsification of business records that caused him to be convicted of felonies, and the spanking of him by Stormy Daniels with a magazine with Trump's face on it. The Epstein tape includes an allegation, which is impossible to verify, that Trump had an affair with a politician while in the White House. So that's another big claim, again, unsubstantiated, but big. Epstein offered no proof or sourcing for the claim. He also alleged that Trump cheated on both his first wife, Ivana, and second wife, Marla Maples, with a quote-unquote black girl. Very strange way to introduce such an anecdote or describe such an anecdote. At one section, Epstein used a Yiddish racial slur to refer to a black woman and alleged Trump boasted to him, "I'm effing all these black women." So then we get to a little bit more of this recording.
And you must have had a better wife, right? I said, yes. Tell me about it. And the wife's on the speakerphone listening down and said, I know you, well, I think you're really hot. And I know you think you're a guy. Michael is like the end of the world, the best guy on earth. You will be married to him. You're wrong. Just listen to the next 20 minutes. And go with the new rubbers. Set you up.
So that's the end of the alleged story of Trump. Then going to the wife of a friend of his and saying, and this was according to these tapes, something Trump has done multiple times, then convincing the wife to be with him or sleep with him because of what the wife heard her husband saying to Trump, that Trump secretly led her here. Ugh. But let me make sure that I've read all the notable things here I have. And so that's the second batch. Let's get to now Trump. What was Trump up to as this news was breaking? Well, his rally ramblings and rantings. But I just want to continue saying that it's shocking to me that MAGA uses Jeffrey Epstein and the story of Jeffrey Epstein and the tragedy that he inflicted, the horrific stuff he inflicted onto girls. They will use this, given that Epstein had political connections prominently, as justification for all of their sort of QAnon adjacent theories about Democrats, right? Because you have this really famous example of this underage human trafficker. Now, see, we can say whatever we'd like about any powerful person, about any Democrat. We can just assume. And then, as hypocritical as they can possibly do it, they completely ignore Trump's 10-plus year relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The things Trump has said about him, the things now we're hearing Epstein say about Trump. And I'm honestly so tired being overly cautious, giving overly sort of benefits of the doubt, given the magnitude of the subject matter here. When, number one, I know MAGA would talk about such a story, recordings of Epstein talking about a Democrat, if they had them. And number two, I do think it's a very important additional set of stories to the further confirmed and substantiated ones about Trump's character, who he surrounded himself with, the life that he lived, the character that he embodied. So Trump, while this was breaking, was in North Carolina. Here's the first clip.
It's only good for one thing. It's horrible. It may be a depression. It's only good for one thing. You know what the one thing is? If you are running for office against the idiots that cause this problem, if you're running for office, it's very good, right?
He's saying we may be in a depression economically, which is laughable. We're not. We're doing pretty dang well, all things considered. And he's saying, which is bad, but good if you're running for office. Just like how early in the day, he thanked God. He looked up at the sky and thanked God for the bad jobs report because he thinks it'll help him in the election, a jobs report that, taken in its full context, should not be causing a bunch of alarms or concern. Then you have him saying this.
I don't know. You still have to go and vote. We have to, as they say in football, let's finish it off, right? You got to get that ball across the end zone. You got to get it into the end zone, and that's where we are. But we're in great shape to finish off these people, these leftist, crazy people that are destroying our country.
This clip and one of the next ones here. Let me actually pull up the next really relevant one. Is him setting up election denialism?
Because I'm not supposed to say this, I'm going to be like the fake news. They're saying it's very close. It's really not very close. Based on what's been happening.
So he's trying to push the idea that people say it's close, but we know for certain we're leading and we're crushing this. And yeah, I guess y'all should go vote, but we're already leading by so much. All right, sort of like in football, let's get the ball in the end zone, but we know we're going to. No, you don't. There's actually some bad signs for you. But while very possible that Trump could win, not a certainty, and definitely insane for him to be acting like it's the equivalent of just make sure you don't drop that ball before you cross the end zone lines we recently saw in a football game. But he wants people to believe it's so certain he's going to win that if he loses, it must have been stolen. Then Trump said this about Biden, I should say.
Where the hell is Biden? What happened to that guy? Where's Biden? Tell me, is this the worst administration in history? Where the hell is Biden? Where's Biden? The ladies from North Carolina, what happened to Biden? What the hell's going on?
I actually can tell you where I heard Jaden in the background laughing. He knows where I'm going with this. Let me pull this up. I think I just saw Biden somewhere saying something about Trump, actually, that gave me a chuckle.
They want another giant tax cut for the wealthy. Now, I know some of you guys are tempted to think it's macho guy. I'll tell you what, man. When I was in Scranton, we used to have a little trouble going down the plot once in a while from Greenwich. But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
I could watch that 100 times, and I'll never not laugh. So let's do it one more time. Wait, sorry.
From Greenwich. But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
Why? So that's where Biden is. That's what he's up to amid all of this. Those are the type of guys you like to smack in the ass, you know what I'm saying? Just smack them real hard. Their cheeks are going to be red.
He is not in favor of IVF, fertilization. I am. I'm like the father. I consider myself to be the father of fertilization, remember?
According to some of those Epstein stories, maybe so, Donald. But he's talking about being the father of IVF, and that's deranged given that he admitted he only figured out what IVF was whenever the Alabama ruling came down that threatened IVF because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade because of him. And so he only started caring about it when he realized it could be a political issue for him. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know what you thought of all of it in the comments. And we are going to be doing live election day coverage starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time.
We have to show that the MAGA way will only ever end in electoral defeat.
Just completely off the rails consistently, openly, brazenly, and blatantly insult. It is a sign of his own desperation.
So friends, if you're eligible voters, I want you to keep this in mind. Donald Trump will never be held accountable for anything he does if you give him back the keys to the White House. The stakes are too high.